Unleash the power of purpose with impactful business voices, hosted by Nancy Backey and Anita Larson. Each week, you'll be inspired by stories from companies that are making a real difference in the world, and you'll learn practical tips on how to grow your business with an impact. Hello, everybody. Nancy speaking. Thank you guys for listening to Impactful Business Voice podcast, where every week we talk to a business owner that makes an impact on the world, in their communities, and in the lives of their clients. We are here to always find out what drives and really hope that it's going to inspire you to make an impact in your own business as well. We're your hosts. I'm Nancy Backey.
And I'm Anita Larson. So as always, we are very excited. We have another impactful business owner that we want to introduce to you, and we want to share the impact she makes and share information about her business. So today, that person is Danielle Southwich from Southwich Grief Recovery. She's here to talk to us about grief in all its shapes and forms. What is it? How does it impact us? And steps to take to recover from it. So with no further ado, let's just welcome Danielle to the show. Danielle, welcome to the show.
Such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Really excited about this. I know the topic of grief. I'm excited to talk about it. But I am. I love it. I love it. I love what I do, and that I'm able to help other people is really great.
Yeah, and it's so important to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know that talking about grief is not the easiest thing, right? It's a very heavy topic, and that conversation around it, it's really not an easy topic. Can we maybe start out with just really defining what grief means and
absolutely.
What you help and what you really help your clients with?
Sure. So that's an excellent place to start. Yeah, it's when we talk about grief, we talk about the conflicting feelings, right? That come with a change or end of a familiar pattern of behavior. So that can definitely and absolutely be correlated to a death, right? The conflicting feelings that you may have, the feeling of like reaching out for someone who's always been there, to realize that when you need them one more time, they're no longer there, right? But sometimes we don't have the best relationships with everybody, and you could have a negative relationship with someone and they can pass away and die, and that can be the feeling of like reaching out for someone who's never been there for you, only to realize that you need them one more time, they're still no longer there. So this conflict of emotion that happens when you've lost something. But grief is not just for death or divorce, right? This is the most common thing that we talk about. Someone's grieving, they must have had a significant loss or a loss of a person. But there's actually several different types of losses that we experience, like more than 40, which really blew my mind when I started getting into this and learning about it, because I kind of got into this work as a griever myself about 10 years ago, when I was living out in California, and somebody suggested that I take this course and through the Grief Recovery Institute. And I remember taking it. I'm like, how is this going to help me? Like, I have so many different types of losses that were just weighing me down and just that I've been carrying for such a long time. And so I remember my instructor saying, like, just like do the work and like watch how, just trust me, right? Basically. And I was like, okay. So I showed up. I did the work, and I was like, whoa. I remember like waking up 3 days later going, I don't hate this person anymore. Like, that's incredible to carry that much for so long towards someone who has done real harm to you in your life, and to say like, you don't hate them anymore because you've done the work. And so at that point, I realized that the work works, and that's pretty amazing. So I'm going to start doing this, to applying this tool, this newfound tool, to other areas of my life, other losses of safety, losses of trust. So there's all these different things. And at some point I was like, to my instructor, after about 2 years, I said, I think I need to teach this. And they're like, yeah, we think you do too. So I got certified through them, the Grief Recovery Institute, and then my advanced certification through them, and really haven't looked back since. The work works, and I really enjoy doing it for myself, but also helping teach other people this new set of tools so that they don't have to carry these losses with them. They can recognize it, they can honor them, and they can move forward without having to carry it with them all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's we never really hear about that. It's
No.
whenever we hear the word grief, we really hear more
Sure.
that word that I don't even like to use, right? So it's
Sure. Yeah, we don't identify it properly, right? So there's really three categories, I would say, of losses. There's tangible losses, so death, divorce, right? I've lost a physical item, a physical person, a pet, right? But then there's an intangible loss that comes with those losses as well, or that can come with those losses. Intangible losses of safety, losses of trust, losses of control of like the body, and then there's disenfranchised losses. I always like think of a different word and I have to correct myself internally. Disenfranchised losses. So tangible, intangible, and disenfranchised. And disenfranchised is like a celebrity has died, right? It's somebody that you might not have been close to in your day-to-day activity, but you know a lot about, and you're connected to them. There's an emotional connection that is there. Perhaps somebody that you've met online and only have an online relationship with, maybe playing through video games or something like that, where they're no longer in your life. There's conflict of feelings that happens when you lose that part of your relationship that needs to get resolved. And so what I do is I primarily help women, but I help other people resolve those types of losses and adversity that life is messy. Life brings your way. A lot of reconciliation work.
This was so eye-opening to me when you and I first spoke. And for anybody listening, excuse my voice today if it goes in and out. I'm a little under the weather, so bear with me. But when you and I first spoke, Danielle, and we talked about the different types of losses and the tangible and intangible, and when we schedule a segment to talk about grief, it sounds like, okay, that's going to be a heavy topic to cover. And of course, yes, it can be.
It can be.
But
it doesn't have to be all the time. But
right, exactly. Like you said, it can involve so much more than death. There are so many other types of losses, and there are tools available for you to help recover from all types of losses and different types of grieving. So I thought that was so important to note and really open up my eyes. So
it's interesting because you talk about the tool, and for the longest time, in GR they talk about painting with a hammer, right? It just gets messy because you might not have had the right tool, right? You might not have had the right set of tools to learn how to process loss, or even what loss was. Like when I was learning about it, I didn't even understand feelings. Like I started from way back when like someone had to teach me those things, and I was like, oh, okay. Like they had to teach me basics, like mad, sad, glad, afraid, embarrassed. It was like, okay, what are you feeling? I was like, I don't know. Like I'm feeling feelings. Great. So slowing the process down is important, and also getting the right tools, because once you paint with a paintbrush, man, it's beautiful. It's really gorgeous what you can do. And that's why, at least for me, grief is an exciting thing to talk about, because I want to be free. I want to live in capacity and of being present for myself and being present for my family and my friends and my community. And when I'm not carrying all of those things forward with me, it helps me do those things, because grief is cumulative, and it's cumulative negatively. And so if you don't deal with it, the danger becomes that you're just going to continue to collect and collect and collect. And eventually that's going to show up in your body in a negative way. And that's what happened for me. And so I tell clients all the time, like, look, this is hard work. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. This is difficult, hard work, but I've walked the journey because somebody walked with me, and I'm going to walk with you in how to help and show you how to use these tools properly so that you can also be free. But it only works if you show up, you do the work, and you continue to practice it. Yeah.
So something you had mentioned also in our previous conversation was the don't feel bad.
Sure.
And can you elaborate on this, and what does it mean, and how does it hinder your growth?
Yeah, so there's 6 myths about grief that we talk about and we dive into in depth. I won't go through all of them, but one of them is don't feel bad. And so a lot of the times we get this messaging in movies, entertainment, in our families of origin, in books that we read, and really in our communities, of minimizing pain, in comparing pain, in not feeling it, avoiding pain. So this subliminal messaging of don't feel bad. You might have heard some, you might have said some, right? A couple of common ones are don't feel bad, there's more fish in the sea, right? Don't feel bad, there'll be another one, right? Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad, you'll get another job, right? Don't feel bad.
They lost.
It'll be over soon. They were in pain. Reading from a list, because I haven't memorized, there's like probably 500 different versions of this, right? And the problem that I found with don't feel bad, because that was a message pretty hardcore for me, whether it was directly, more indirect in my upbringing, in my childhood, was don't feel bad. The problem is that when you listen to that and you act in that, you can't just choose which emotion to mute, right? You can't just say, oh, I'm going to mute sad. I'm going to just bring that down, stuff it down, not feel it. You end up muting all of them. I go like this because my husband works in audio, and like an audio console, you kind of bring all of them down.
Right.
You start to mute those emotions for yourself, but you dull all of it. And what happens is that if you do that for long enough, if you don't feel bad, don't feel bad, don't feel bad, don't feel bad, and you live in that, and you live in that emotion, you live in that mentality, don't feel bad becomes don't feel. And don't feel becomes don't. And that's really what my story was, is that I lived in that don't feel bad, that messaging of everything has to be okay. You can't be sad. You can't be hurt. You can't be in pain. So you have to pretend it's all okay. Right. And then you mute that for long enough, and you start to work harder. You start to, we call it, shopaholics, you start to fill that pain with anything you can do to avoid it. For me, I used drugs and alcohol for probably close to 10 years. And when that didn't work, I had to work more. And when that didn't work, I did more things, right? And so it got to a point for me where it was like, don't feel bad became don't feel to the max capacity, became don't, where I'm sitting in a car in my early 20s as a train's going by, putting a list together. Do I stay or do I go? And like, that is incredibly hopeless and sad, that at mid 20s, that you're feeling and thinking that way. But that's the danger of this subliminal messaging of don't feel bad. So what is the antidote for that? And it's tough, but you have to feel. You have to feel it. You have to go through the emotions that have been trapped and not spoken and not expressed with someone that's safe. And so we talk about what is unresolved grief. What does it feel like, right? Depression, kind of feel prickly on edge. You feel down all the time. You might have a roller coaster of emotion. Those are kind of warning signs like, hey, something maybe isn't resolved here. But the antidote to that, right? This unresolved grief is almost always around things that have, like, that we wish we had said or done different, better, or more in the relationship. So you slow things down and you start to take an inventory and you say, what do I wish was different, better, or more in this relationship? I wish, my parents had been better resources for me emotionally growing up, right? I wish whatever those things are, getting them top of mind, writing them down. And they're also about the unrealized hopes, dreams, and expectations of the relationship, right? We talk about this a lot in like when someone has had a miscarriage. So you had hopes, dreams, and expectations for your child. Of course you do. Everyone does. That's normal and natural. And now the child is no more, right? But you still have all of those hopes, dreams, and expectations for the things that child was going to do and become in his or her life that you need to grieve for. It's not just the death of the child. It's this intangible losses that come with, you're never going to see them graduate. You're never going to walk them down an aisle. And all these things that you had hopes, dreams, and expectations that you have to reconcile, right? And when you do that work, you honor that relationship and you can move forward, and you're never going to forget the person. You're never going to forget the loss. You're never going to forget, the events, the traumas that have happened to you. but you can live with them in a way that they don't hold you back anymore. And finally, unresolved grief, the last point is undelivered communications. So things we wish we had said or done different, better, or more, unrealized hopes, dreams, and expectations, and then undelivered communications of an emotional nature. So actually learning the language of emotion and learning to express it to someone who is safe, someone who's not going to judge or analyze or criticize you. Someone who's going to actually be there and just be a heart with ears is what we call it. It's important, and it's wildly successful when you take that time and take that inventory and do the work. And that's what I encourage people is like, look, do the work, because the work works. And I continue to use these tools in my own life because it works. And I'll tell you, it's tough to feel sadness, to feel anger, to feel all the feelings, and it's also tough if you don't have the language of emotions. I use a resource. I'll share it with you guys after from the Center of Nonviolent Communication. They've got this beautiful resource on needs, like an inventory of needs and an inventory of feelings. And so I actually would carry that around with me in the early years and reference it because I didn't have the language for it. And that's okay. That was a tool that I needed at that time to identify, what is it that I need? Do I need a drink of water? Do I need to rest? Do I need to sleep? Like, what do I need? And what am I missing that I'm trying to fulfill here? Is it a hug? Is it a word of encouragement? Like, I don't know. Our needs and our emotions are like this river, right? And it's just flowing, and like one's coming and like the next one's coming along. And it's like, okay, how do you stay in tune with that? It's just a lot of practice. So, I something there.
Danielle, no, this is incredible. I love what you're saying. Like, you're making me just think we all have this. All of us. We all have something, whether it's with our spouses, with our children, with our own selves, with our friends, with parents. Like, we have it. And we just have to learn how to deal with it so that we just stay healthy. And I mean, I call this living not just a better life, but living longer. I mean, that's how I look at it. I mean, you spoke a lot of the things in our personal life. You spoke about the concept of the tangible and intangible.
Sure.
Can you talk to us a little bit in the context of the workplace?
Sure. Yeah, actually, these are a couple areas that people don't typically think about when it comes to grief, but actually employment, a couple different areas. Employment, also a job promotion is a loss. So when you have a relationship with your coworkers, right, and maybe you've been promoted to a manager, your relationship to them has now changed, right? The roles, the responsibilities have changed. You can no longer maybe hang out with them the same way or joke around the same way or share the same information the same way that you used to. There's a shift that happens in that promotion. With that promotion, you might have also gotten a raise, right? Congratulations, that's fantastic. Like, these are good things, right? This is the conflict of like, now you have more to manage. So there's different things like that. A new employee comes in, right? There's a change that happens within the community of employees that you have physically there, or whether you're a hybrid or a remote company. There's a change that happens because now there's someone new, right, inside that inner circle, inside that community. And you build trust and you build relationships and you share life, and all of these things are beautiful and great. And you're on this mission together to do things. And then someone decides that they're going to leave for whatever reason, right? And there's another loss. It's a loss for the employer, right? It's a loss for the employee, but it's also a loss for your vendors, right? If they've had relationship with vendors, it's a loss for their coworkers. So how do you help someone process those things and realize that, like, these things are normal, like these things happen, they're normal. It's normal to feel whatever you're feeling is okay, but to talk about it in an open way and create space to share about how someone's feeling, and just hear them out like, wow, this is a big impact, even if they're moving on to something good, right? It doesn't always have to be someone who got fired, right? It could be somebody who decided to resign and start their own company or start their own business, like I did in my example. I recently, I'm like 2 months away from a full-time corporate life, and it was a great decision, but it had a lot of thought that got put into it because it was a larger company with a long relationships. I was there for about 7 years, and giving people voice and just listening to them as they processed it for themselves was a big part of leaving well. I talk about that a lot, like leaving well, wherever you're at in a community gathering. You could be at a barbecue, you could be, whatever it is, wherever you're physically at, leaving well, leaving a place better than when you arrived. And I think about that in the physical space, right? Whether that's taking care of dishes or whatever it is, but also emotionally, like leaving well emotionally, leaving well mentally with the people around you. Yeah, I don't know where that jumped to the front of my brain, but I like
it was great.
And I think you said one thing that's really important is, you got to leave them the space to talk about it. So what other strategies do you recommend for businesses or business owners to use to help their employees cope with some of these losses? Employee resigns, relocates, how can they support the team and create that environment?
Sure. I think a lot of that is having the awareness that there is a loss that has occurred. Having an awareness. I mean, that's the really being aware and being able to name it, being able to speak about it, and being able to create that space for your team to say, hey guys, like this is happening. These are the good things about it. These are some of the negative impacts about it, right? Maybe there's some more workload for people. Maybe there's, some shift of responsibilities and whatnot, but to slow things down and not just move past it, not just be so quick to be like, okay, we're moving forward. We're doing things, like just avoid it, forget about it. Don't think about it. Yeah. Don't say their name again. Like that's the worst thing you can do.
Right.
Like, hey, there's an elephant in the room. I think we should talk about it, because here's the thing, like for a business owner, like whether you deal with it or not, it's being talked about. Like those things are happening. People are having real emotional reactions to these things. So I think creating space and being vocal about it and in a way that honors both the person, but also the people that are still there as well. Yeah. And then I think it's similar for the employee themselves. It's like doing it, leaving in a way that's good, leaving in a way that doesn't burn bridges, leaving in a way that sets everyone up for success. But also gives space for people to maybe go out for lunch with people and just share with them, ask them how they're feeling and just listen, Yeah.
You've given us some great insights on different ways for them to, like what they go through. Can you share a few insights on steps on how to recover from different types of losses and really foster a nurturing environment in the workplace as well?
Sure. I want to answer in a way that is correct, but also in a way that is just honest. Honestly,
you want honest.
It's pretty similar. Like a lot of people try to compare their losses, and then some of the danger of that is that we're all unique individuals. So the way I experience a similar event to the way you experience a similar event are completely different because we are completely different. And the other thing for me is like it's really about identifying what you're feeling. And somebody taught me this, which was really helpful. A lot of the times I didn't know what I was feeling. So I inverted the question and I would ask myself, what am I not trying to feel? Because that was an easier way to figure out what I was trying to avoid. So asking yourself, what am I not trying to feel, can sometimes give you the data that you need in order to then decide, am I going to feel this? Is it safe to feel it now? Or do I need to go and wait and write this down and share it with a friend who can then, help me? And I would say like a friend or a safe person is someone who's not going to judge or analyze or criticize you, right? There's someone who's going to take in the information and just be curious with you and let you get that thing up and out. Like a lot of the times we stuff our emotions down, we swallow them, and that's not healthy either. Like, yeah, there's a time and a place to deal with things, you know, in crisis moment is probably not that time and place, but knowing that like you have those safe people, you develop those safe people, and if you don't have them, right, you find them, you search for them. A coach is great for that, right?
Yeah.
And you practice it with them, right, in a safe space. So I mean, it's very similar. It's asking yourself what you need, identifying the need, and then meeting it. Like that's the next step. Like, because you can identify things all the time, but like you need to meet it. Those are words, right? Meet the need. And when you meet it, then you're like, okay, now I can go on to the next thing.
Yeah. So through your work, and you mentioned this earlier, you said, you know, you couldn't go through life feeling the way you did, and now to have the tools you needed to be able to live with your grief and your sense of loss and everything that goes with that. Have there been other like unexpected lessons or silver linings you didn't expect from the work you've done with you or your clients?
Yeah, that's a great insight. Yes. So here's something I didn't realize. Whether people in your family of origin or your friend circle or your community even understand that you're doing the deep work, the heart work, right? It impacts them. It impacts them in ways that like you never could have imagined. I started doing some of this, it's so interesting. I started doing some of this work really early on my immediate family relationships and things. And at the time, my family and I were not reconciled at all. And my older brother was actually one of the family members in my life that had a lot of the pain that came with it. And years later, like I would say 8 years later, he came and started to reconcile with me. And it was like, out of all the family members, I didn't expect it to be him, which was exciting and great. But there's a gift that happens that you're giving to someone, even if they don't realize that that you're giving it to them. And when you get healthy, other people around you, they either want to be healthy because they see it and they see that lightheartedness and they see that like that happiness that happens and that that space that you now have that you've created for more capacity, or they decide they don't want it and they remove themselves from you, which is also kind of a gift because I don't want to be around people that don't want to do the work. And like, it's simple. And I had to learn that because that was one of the like kind of intangible losses that I had to work through when I got clean and sober. Is I lost a lot of those friends that I would hang out with. I lost a lot of those relationships that I would be around in that world. And yes, that's a good thing. And I chose something different. I chose something better. I just got help, and I was like, oh, okay, I need to feel things. But that was a loss that I had to reconcile. And some of those relationships have come around and some haven't. But yeah, there's something beautiful about when you choose to do the work, which is so exciting for me. And which is why it makes me want to continue to do it, not just for my immediate family, but my future family. My husband and I, we want to have kids. And I'm like, I want to get healthy, not just for me, not just for him, but like, so that I don't pass it down to the next generation. So that I don't recycle the things that I learned, because the way you learn how to grieve is by the people that you were raised with the closest. So that could be a parent or a grandparent or a foster parent, anybody, a grant, whatever. The way that they know how to grieve is the way you learned how to grieve. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's something I ask a lot. Is like, where did you learn that? Like, who taught you that? If you can kind of break that down, you're like, oh, I learned that here. Okay. How do I move forward from that? What do I replace it with or change it out with? That's a better way.
And you are who you hang out with, right? We hear that all the time. So if you're around it and if you don't break that chain, it's just going to continue and continue. So no, I love that. You're opening my eyes to so many amazing things. It's incredible. Listen, this has been an incredible podcast. Grief and loss can be can really take on, can be in so many different forms, right? And you've really opened my eyes to it. I've really never really looked at it more than that until Anita told me about you. Can you leave us? No, but I mean, it's, you know, like we always learn new things, right?
No, I smile because like that's the beauty of it. Like I didn't know it until someone taught me, and I was like, whoa, okay, maybe there are some areas of my life that I have not associated with grief before that I really need to reconsider and say, maybe this is something I'm grieving. Maybe this is a loss that I hadn't considered, and I need to deal with it, because if I don't deal with it, it's going to stick with me. And like, that's not good either. Even like small things, I guess that's a comparison of a loss to myself, right? Okay, I'm still unlearning some old behaviors. But even in things that maybe aren't as traumatic, right, as some of the things that I've experienced in my past, it's like, there's still losses. There's still losses, like moving. When we got into our first house, that was a loss. Like, we were so happy that we got into a house and we were homeowners, first-time homeowners, all this stuff, but we lost our neighbors, right? We lost our commute to work. We lost the way that we go grocery shopping because it's a completely different city route and all those things. Those are losses. Those are intangible things that come with it. The conflict, right? The conflict. So.
And you said something really important. I mean, we're all parents. I don't know if you're a parent, but like.
Not yet, but we're trying.
Yes, I know you were mentioning. As parents, as spouses, it's very important to not keep it so that we can teach the rest. But we got to fix it ourselves. So yeah, no, I can talk about that for. Danielle, can you leave us with some actionable steps for our listeners to really take if they're grieving or experience loss in their lives? What can you leave them with that they can just at least start helping themselves?
Sure.
And then connecting with you later.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first of all, whatever you're feeling is normal and natural. And just know that it's okay. Whatever you're feeling is normal. And so the first step I would say is, you know, ask yourself, what am I feeling? Or if you can identify, what am I not trying to feel, using maybe one of those resources that we can link up after. So what am I feeling? Write it down and share it with someone who is safe. And that's someone who is not going to judge, analyze, criticize, or condemn you. There's someone who's going to love you and hear you out. I would say, honestly, that's the recipe right there. You can do that with a friend. You can do that. Initially I trained my husband how to do that. Right? I showed him, like, look, babe, I just need you to listen. Like, I don't need you to fix this. I just need you to listen. And at the end, say, thank you for sharing. That's it. That's it. But if you don't have that person, if you want to do deep work, right? I'm ready. I'm here and I'm ready for that next person who wants to do that deep work. Learn that skill set, learn those tools. People can find me, DanielleSouthwich.com. All my information's there. I'm pretty available there. But yeah, let's get conversations going and like, let's demystify that grief is some scary thing. It can be scary at times, but it's not scary all the time. Like, it's just things that we need to work through, and it's okay to feel however you're feeling. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Danielle. It's
thank you.
Been a great conversation, and I think we all learned a lot just from this brief half hour with you. So
I appreciate it.
And then we will come join you in a few minutes and just talk about our quick takeaways.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thank
you, Danielle. It has been a really big pleasure.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, really. Whew. That was a little heavy, actually, for me, to be honest.
Really? I thought it was a great,
amazing
conversation.
Oh, it was. It was great. It was actually a reliever as well. I don't know if that really makes sense, but it's like, you know, sometimes we don't realize that there's certain things in our lives that we just sit on, you know, and we are so busy, we don't think of going back to, but it is affecting us deep inside, and it's affecting other people around us. So it's, that was an incredible.
And I think that was so important that I kind of took away from this conversation is that grief and a sense of loss and pain is so individual, and you can't judge people for how they're feeling and how they're processing what they consider a loss versus what we consider a loss. You know, like when we talked about the tangible, intangible, and disenfranchised loss.
Yes.
I mean, you see, some people will get very upset about a celebrity dying but that could affect their childhood memory. Like they grew up with this person, seeing that person all the time is like an idol, you know? And you just can't really tell people, you know, don't feel bad. He was old or she was old or it was bound to happen. And, you know, those kind of things. So going back to what Danielle said about the don't feel bad myth.
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, that's almost like, you know, if you listen to that, you're almost like gaslighting yourself. You're not recognizing your feelings, like your feelings aren't valid. You're feeling it, then let yourself feel it. Right.
Yeah. Or even the word get over it. You know, I know I've
Right.
heard it so many times. Like, oh my God. Like when she was speaking and saying that, that's exactly what I kept on hearing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how she said grief is exciting because you want to live free and, you know, be in that present moment in your life. And it really, like, can you really do it without carrying it all on your shoulders? You can't. Like when you really look at it,
Yeah.
it's keeping you so heavy. Like, why not let it go, understand it more so that you can live better? And hey, when you live better, you have a healthier life and you live longer, right? So
It's
it works all together.
transformative.
Yeah.
I mean, it is transformative. I mean, if you think of people's lives, even our own, I'm sure to some extent, you know, and everything we go through and the different types of losses, small, tangible, intangible, you know, bigger losses, whatever they may be,
Yeah.
and how they have shaped us into becoming the person we are now, like how they have strengthened us, how they have taught us to get in touch with certain emotions, or how they have changed our behaviors in many ways.
Yeah.
I believe that, you know, suffering any type of loss and going through that is transformative for any person, and it shapes.
Agree. And you know, she was talking about the learning the language of emotion, how important it is. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you know, before the pandemic, we were working and busy, all that. Pandemic came, and like most of us anyways were, you know, sitting at home and not really able to do anything. And then we got so busy over the pandemic. Now we're like, oh, we don't even have time to even think about our own emotions. It's even more important now than ever. And the worst is we are not taught out there how to feel, how to take care of our emotions. We're not really, you know, where do we learn that? Not in school, that's for sure. Not through friends, you know, things like that. But important to know to do the work because the work works, just like she put it, right?
Yeah, and something you mentioned at the end of the conversation, Nancy, that really resonated with me as well is, as parents, you and I, as mothers especially, you go through so many stages of loss in raising a child, like from being pregnant to now the child is born. And how many moms haven't like kind of missed the pregnancy because now it's not there anymore, right? And you're kind of grieving that a little bit. And then now first you have a baby, now it's a toddler, now it's a teenager. Like, what happened? You know, all these different stages of loss that you go through in the age of a child. I think that's very prominent, I think, in parenting.
And just to continue that, look at the teenagers that we have. I mean, every day is a different world. There's this emotion, that emotion. We need to teach that. Like this
the emotions
episode,
they go through. Yes.
Yeah, this episode made me really realize. Not that I didn't realize it before. I did know, but now it's an extra push that we have to help them identify that because it is a crazy world out there.
And then to leave it on the note of, you know, again, talking to our small business owners, I do appreciate the times we're in now where it is becoming more the norm to have more open communication and creating that culture in a workplace.
Yes.
Because I think Danielle reinforced that, how important it is to have that open communication and making sure you also know how to process those losses within the workspace. I think that is very important.
Absolutely. And it's so important, like Danielle said, share it with somebody that you feel safe. And if you really don't have anyone, call her. I mean, I know I have a few people, but these people are not judgmental and all that, but maybe they're just not the right people as well. So I'm definitely going to give Danielle a call, honestly. You know, if I could learn one or two little things, I know that I could pass that on to my child and the future continues. So Danielle, I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you shortly. This has been awesome. This has been really, really amazing.
Yeah.
Guys, make sure that you keep in touch with Anita and myself to learn what else that we have going on with opportunities for additional information, and to obviously learn from us as well. Don't miss out on any of our future episodes. You're going to find a copy of this recording on our YouTube channel on Impactful Business Voices. We ask you to please support us. Click on the subscribe button so that you don't miss any of our weekly calls.
And next Tuesday is the last Tuesday of the month. So Nancy and I have our monthly business lounge episode where we want to help share our business secrets. And this month, we're going to talk about the importance of joint ventures and strategic alliances as the lead generation strategy. We're going to discuss why it's a must-have strategy in your business and how you're going to make it successful and make it work for you. So join us next week to learn how joint ventures can scale your business.
Until next week, go make an impact. Thank you for listening to Impactful Business Voices. Subscribe now and don't miss an episode.